10 minutes. T-minus 9 minutes. T-minus 8 minutes. T-minus 7 minutes. minutes. T-minus 1 minute. Stand by.
Oh, do we have an intro? Hi. Hello. So we're on the air. How about that? How do you like us so far, everybody? It's the RP show, and we are live on Game Plus Television Network with breaking news we're going to get to from the National Hockey League. We're coming to you from the Moose Jaw Golden Ticket Sports Center. Moose is in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And yeah, it's not like they caught me with my pants down, Moose, but damn close. Way to go, Corey. Do we have the co-host with us, Darren Moose DuPont? I feel like, Corey, what are you doing? What are we doing here? Do we have a co-host? Okay. Well, we're
On here,
live, and
Rod.
there he is. Hi, Moose. Hi. I'm going to move over here. And how do you like us so far? Are you ready to jump right into the show and go with this with the topics?
I feel
Get
like
away from it.
we're just jumping into the day. We're jumping into the day. It's all good, my guy. It's all good.
Okay. Quick six show horn. It's the opening segment. We have breaking news, Darren, before we get to what I was going to talk about here in Canada, which is NHL notes and countdown to the draft and all the nice things that everybody's talking about on the national networks. No. Out here in Western Canada, Evander Kane is a Vancouver Canuck. Don't tell me you don't know this, Moose. The 33-year-old winger posted a goodbye to the Edmonton Oilers on social media this morning, thanking the Oilers organization, his teammates, and Edmonton's fans. The Post also said he is incredibly excited to join the Vancouver Canucks and return to his hometown of Vancouver, where he played junior for the Western Hockey League's Vancouver Giants. Spittin' Chicklets reporting the Oilers are getting a fourth-round pick in return. So stop the presses. That's the thing. Producer Corey and Skycron just couldn't wait to get us on the air with this breaking news all across Canada, Darren, here on Game Plus Television and hockey fans in the United States. Evander Kane going from the Oilers to the Canucks for a fourth-round draft pick. Can I go first? It's the Rod Pedersen Show. His time at Edmonton, I don't know. I want to hear from Oilers fans. I want to hear from Canucks fans. I want to hear from Evander Kane fans. They didn't win a Stanley Cup with him. He was injured all of this year. And I've never been the biggest fan of Evander Kane. Took a lot of dumb penalties in the Stanley Cup final. Got kicked out of the clinching Game 6. Didn't come out for the handshake line. Not an Evander Kane fan. Vancouver, he's your problem now. That's my take on Evander Kane going to Vancouver. Your second favorite team. What's yours?
This is an interesting morning. Like, it's an interesting trade because he was really useful in Edmonton over the course of his tenure. If you look at the whole thing, last year, I feel like much more than this year. Obviously, he didn't play during the season, but he was a factor last year in that Stanley Cup Finals, or in that Stanley Cup run to the finals. But this year, I just didn't feel it. And you talk about the penalties and not coming out to shake hands. And there's been the odd distraction. And it just feels like with everything that's going on in Vancouver and that's gone on with, Elias Pedersen and the whole deal there and Rick Tocchet leaving, this feels like a problem that the Canucks don't need.
Yeah.
But they get a player who can score. They get a player who brings a little bit of an edge to his game, or a nastiness, maybe a little bit. Maybe he'll be an asset. But you talk about fit and personality and all those things, it just doesn't feel like a headache that the Canucks need. And I'm scratching my head.
Okay. John Ohm writes that he says, after every year in Winnipeg, Evander Kane asked for a trade. Fact. I don't know if that's been reported somewhere or not, but I like John Ohm. He's my dude. Is this why you didn't answer my call this morning? Because your throat's just shot? It's clearly not getting any better, man. I appreciate you coming on, but if you need to take the rest of the week off, you tell me, man. You said it doesn't hurt? You told me it doesn't hurt. Is that a fact?
It doesn't hurt. I'm sick. There's no sniffles. Nothing.
Okay.
I feel like a dog who's had his vocal cords snipped because he barks too much.
Okay. Well, just don't push it, as we talked about yesterday, and I appreciate you coming on. And the viewers, I also know that they appreciate you coming on as well. BW in Edmonton writes in, and he says, Evander Kane is a salary dump. Still going to miss his energy. So, hey, I was not a fan of him being acquired. I was on record as saying it wouldn't work. And to be honest, I would say the Oilers slammed that down my throat because they did go to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. And he had a far bigger role 2 seasons ago than he did this past season. He was injured all year, right? But anyways, the Oilers are done with him. And if it is as simple as off the books is what BW was saying, it's all a money thing. Either way, he's going to Vancouver. He does not go with a solid reputation, but as my advisor in Florida, Lisa, says, don't listen to what people say. She's like, people said bad things about you, Rod, and they were wrong, and that is also true as well. Now, that's the breaking news. Evander Kane being traded to the Vancouver Canucks. So we're going to go fast. We always do. Moose is only with us for 40 minutes, and we only got 2 minutes here before we break. Alexander McGillney's long wait for the Hockey Hall of Fame is over. On the 17th try, the high-scoring Russian winger was selected as part of the induction class for the Hockey Hall of Fame along Duncan Keith, Brianna Decker, and Jennifer Botterill. McGillney had been eligible for election since 2009. I feel like that's not even the story of this induction class. The story is Joe Thornton. To me, Duncan Keith, Zdeno Chara. That's the story. It's not McGillney. Yeah, he finally got in. My mind immediately went to Theo, but I'm not going down that road anymore. At some point, you need to give up. I have. I don't know if Theo has or not. It's a great class. How do you feel?
It's a wonderful class. You mentioned Keith, Chara, and Thornton. Those are guys that I grew up watching, and we all kind of did too. But, that's where I'm at. All these guys that are my hockey heroes are all going into the Hall of Fame. McGillney's one of them too, when he played in Vancouver, but then he had a good stint in Toronto when I was a fan growing up. I feel good for him. It's going to be the feel-good story of this class, him finally getting in. I'll be curious. His speech will be one that we probably play. I'm not sure what kind of a public speaker he is, but this is a great class. And I've always been a big Joe Thornton fan too. I love Joe Thornton, and we can't deny Zdeno Chara's impact on the game too. This is a really good class.
They're all greats. And now that you say that, and it's a minute till we break here, but all the Roenick went in last year. McGillney's going in this year. There's literally like nobody left other than Theo, right, to get in. We all wonder what was the deal with these guys. Well, there's nobody left other than Theo that I can think of that we're sitting every year. We're waiting to hear that name. And McGillney goes in now after 17 tries. From the audience, they want to talk about Vancouver. Bomber Boy writes in, he says, Vancouver and drama go hand in hand. Colt Alvarez writes in, he says, how about the Abbotsford Canucks winning the AHL Calder Cup? How about him? Scott in Vancouver says, I wouldn't mind Kuzmenko back with Elias Pedersen. Actually, they had good chemistry, but Tocchet wanted Kuz to back check, blah, blah, blah. Okay, to football when we come back right after this here on Game Plus and streaming.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Hi, my name is Logan Stankoven. And I'm Connor Bedard. We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB. Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center, July 7th. With special guest, Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit ShaniaTwain.com.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Welcome back, everybody, on a Wednesday, June the 25th. The Moose is with us in a second on episode 1522, and I appreciate him toughing it out. He's only with us for 40 minutes as he is every day, but thank you, Moose. I'm glad that it doesn't hurt because it seems like it does, but the audience, and specifically me, really appreciate you being here. If I could read just a couple comments from the viewers before we move into football on the Hockey Hall of Fame induction class. BW writes in and says, Keith Tkachuk will probably get in before Theron Fleury does into the Hockey Hall. Keith Tkachuk isn't a Hockey Hall of Famer, so he's not getting in. I don't understand what you mean by that. Jeff, the Stamps fan, writes that he says, hopefully he is a better public speaker than the Florida Panthers players. I don't even know who he's referring to, but I know what he's saying. They're all dropping F-bombs and going crazy in Florida and making no apologies for that, by the way. But thank you, Jeff, the Stamps fan, for the the segue or the connection here. Later on this afternoon, I'm hosting the Panthers podcast. And Darren, you can blink twice if you want to answer this or not with your throat, if you want to save your voice for football. But a guy, David, he's a Panthers fan. He lives in Utah. And he wrote me this morning on my Panthers account, and he said that the Matthew Tkachuk trade will go down in history as the greatest trade in NHL history. Matthew Tkachuk on whatever it was, July of 2022. Can't remember the day. And I got thinking. And we're going to address this on the Panthers Lightning show that we do, the Cats and Bolts podcast this afternoon. Is it the greatest trade in NHL history? The guy, David in Utah, sent me a link to the biggest trades in NHL history. Darren, this won't shock you. Listed number one on this list was the Gretzky trade in '88. But that wasn't the greatest trade in NHL history. It wasn't. For who? For the Oilers, went on to win one more Stanley Cup. They probably would have won 4 or 5 more. Gretzky even said that if they kept him. And the LA Kings never did win a Stanley Cup in Wayne's time. That's not the best trade in NHL history. This Tkachuk trade might be the best trade in NHL history. I can't think of another one. I've tap danced enough, to let you think about it. And all the viewers, please tell me.
Crazy. But I think, we have to at least consider this. And I don't know that I have an alternative that's coming to mind. Now, I'm allowing for a little recency bias, but you make the acquisition, your team instantly becomes, let's say, a top 5 team in the National Hockey League every season, and you win 2 Stanley Cups. I mean, I don't know if you can have a trade work out much better than that. And then to go even further, Bill Zito's also got the best trade deadline acquisition in NHL history in Brad Marchand. So he's got the stroke of luck here, or the stroke of genius. I don't want to call it luck because those are 2 really good moves, calculated, great trades. But that Tkachuk trade has completely flipped the fortunes of the Panthers.
Folks, I can't think of another one, and I've been going back and forth with David in Utah, and he goes, well, it's the greatest trade from a Panthers perspective, and that's all I care about. And I'm like, I know, but can you think about the rest of the league for a second? That's the one problem about covering the NHL in Florida. They all don't believe there was an NHL before 1993. And they say that. They're like, we don't want to talk about anything that happened before the Panthers were around. I said, well, then don't watch the show because there was an NHL before you. That's like your kids saying nothing happened before they came into the world, which a lot of them think, by the way. No, you're not right. So if you don't like it, don't watch. So now, on that vein, by the way, the Western Dodge text line is open as it always is, 902-518-3033. Western Dodge, proud sponsors and partners of the Rod Pedersen Show, Western Dodge and Moose Jaw. Big city selection with small town service. On the text line, Gary from Winnipeg writes it. He says, the CFL commissioner was on CJLB this morning. That's Winnipeg Radio, Manitoba's information superstation. He stated that 7 of the 9 CFL teams lost money in 2024. Not good. It reminds me of Joni Mitchell's lyrics. They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Or you don't know what. That's from Gary in Winnipeg. Listen, read my lips. We're not going to be the doom and gloom show, okay? The guy wrote in here yesterday, I don't know if you were on with me, Darren, at the time, and talked about the attendance, and I snapped. I'm over it, okay? The league doesn't make money. The league's got huge problems. And before we talk about the game of the week, which is up next here, week 4, what Luke Wilson's trying to do is save Canadian football. That's what Luke, and that's why I was trying to call you, Darren. I wanted to kind of prep you a little bit on what Luke Wilson's trying to do here. He's trying to save Canadian football because it's dying. It's dying, okay? And there are so many people that are trying to cut his head off, shoot the messenger. And I'm sitting here almost 20 years older than Luke Wilson going, I tried this, bro. I tried it. I tried to shine a light on the problems, and I got trounced. I got exiled. So I don't want to, I don't know what you want. They lost. They're losing money. The stadiums are empty. Nobody cares. And Luke's the problem because he's saying, let's fix this. Are you seeing this, Darren? I know you do. What are your thoughts on it?
Somebody has to be the bad guy and tell you what's going on. but the same guy also wants to help fix it. So, what do we really want, right? I mean, we want ideally, yes, we want everybody to cheer for the league and celebrate the league and not criticize the league. We don't want any criticism because we want everything to be great, but everything's not great. I understand that. So we have to embrace this and have healthy discussion and have a little back and forth and have fun with it and grow this thing and get some interest in the game. And he's trying to do that. So I'll never fault somebody for trying to, grow it and have fun with it.
And the viewers are already taking umbrage with things that Luke said. I'm not interested in arguing with you. I'm not interested at all. The facts are the facts. You've got the commissioner saying 7 of 9 teams lost money, and y'all want to sit there and ignore it and whistle Dixie and talk about whatever. I don't know. I don't care. I don't. What I will talk about is the games of the week, because we finally go to the schedule, Darren, where they play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which don't get me going, but I love this schedule. And I got in a huge argument with my friend Kevin Carius from Sports 1440 Radio in Edmonton last year when I said, this is the greatest thing the CFL's done in years. A game a day for 4 days. And he said, it's terrible, Baba. I don't know why it's always a fight when it comes to football. It's not just CFL. It seems to be just CFL. Yeah. What is it okay that I like it? Is that okay? How dare you have an opinion that doesn't agree with mine? Oh my God. I'm ready to go back to Florida. I am. So the game of the week in Canada, we do it every Wednesday. It's the poll. What's Canada's game of the week for EMJ Marketing? Elevate your brand and engage your audience with EMJ Marketing. Check them out at emjmarketing.com. These are the games. Thursday, Edmonton at Winnipeg. Friday, Montreal at Hamilton. Saturday, BC at Saskatchewan. And Sunday, Toronto at Ottawa. My vote is BC at Sask. I'm 50-50 on whether I'm going to go. I don't know. I did have a look at the seating map for tickets sold. Looks like there's going to be a good crowd. I was on the BC Lions team podcast last night, First and Now. They asked me about poor attendance in Saskatchewan, and I said I'm not comfortable talking about that. And I want to talk about it even less than how comfortable I am talking about that. So I may or may not go. Mark Chestnut's here in Moose Jaw Saturday night, and that's tugging me that direction too. So my vote is BC at Winnipeg. BC at Sask. Because it is, John Frenzy would say, it's an ESBG, an early season big game. And it is. That's my vote, but what's yours?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that is the game of the week. That is an early season big game. And, BC really needs it. They really need one. You don't want to get caught behind. And, the Riders is just another litmus test. At 3-0, are they for real? Are they for real? Are they for real? So every week's going to be a test. And it's at home in Sask. This is the game of the week. It should be a fun one.
Yeah. John Ohm writes in. John Ohm. He says, any billionaires out there to save the CFL? I'm joking, Rod. It would be nice, though. Here's what I know about billionaires, and to be honest, I know quite a few of them. They didn't get to be billionaires by investing in companies that lose money. Just read it again. They didn't get to be billionaires by investing in companies that lose millions. So that's why they're not lining up to buy CFL teams. Bomber Boy writes in, he says, what about the Bob trade? Everybody's writing in about the the best trade. There's a difference between the biggest trade in NHL history. We can all agree that was the Gretzky trade. We can all agree, August 9th, 1988. But what's the best trade? And to be honest, Ted in Red Deer writes in, he says, the best trade in NHL history. How about the Islanders getting Butch Goring and going on a 4-cup run after falling short for years? Long time ago, though. Well, that's the thing. Thank you, Ted in Red Deer. I appreciate you chiming in, because from what I understand, and Darren wasn't even born yet, and I didn't even have fuzz on my peaches yet when that Butch Goring trade went down. Okay? It was a trade deadline deal, apparently. So when it was going around last week that Brad Marchand was the best trade deadline deal ever, people were saying, no, it was Goring. And I'll defer to the people that were around that have a little more age than we do, if that was bigger than Marchand. But that was a trade deadline day. That trade, I would think, Darren, would qualify in both categories. Best trade deadline deal and best trade overall. It qualifies in both, right? But this Tkachuk trade, like you say, 3 straight Stanley Cups. He's batting 1,000. Tkachuk being in Stanley Cup finals, he's been there 3 years, and they've been in the Stanley Cup final for 3 years. It is a hell of a question, you know. I don't know where the Montreal Canadiens came into this. People have written in and said, Carey Price to the Hall of Fame. He's not in there yet, but he will. Just consider this. I mean, Carey Price, there is a place in heaven waiting for Carey Price. CP31. He's an angel. Think about all those bad Montreal teams, Darren. The bad Montreal teams in the 2010s, the 2000s, the 2010s. And this guy worked his way into the franchise record books, Carey Price, where he's in the conversation with Jacques Plante and Ken Dryden and Patrick Roy. And he didn't have anywhere near the teams those guys did. So I don't even know why we're waiting on Carey Price going into the Hockey Hall of Fame, but it is what it is. Scott in Vancouver writes in, and he says, what are the current CFL TV ratings on TSN? I've heard they were quite strong, according to Farhan Lalji. Wow, the guy from TSN says the TSN's ratings are great. Breaking news, everybody! TSN says the CFL ratings are great. Where's the numbers? Oh, we can't show you those. Just trust us. And it's not that I love Farhan, and he loves me. He's told me we're great friends, but come on. Literally consider the source. The Globe and Mail used to publish the ratings every week. We couldn't wait to get our hands on them. I don't even see the rating. Do you, Darren? I don't see them. I don't know where they are.
No, I haven't looked for them because I don't know where they are either. Sometimes I feel like they pop up on my timeline on social media, but I haven't seen them. So, and I haven't seen that from Farhan.
Darcy in Grand Prairie writes in, he says, Cam Neely for Barry Pedersen. Well, yeah, the Bruins did not go on to win Stanley Cups, but I get what I totally get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. That was like a one-sided trade. Look, we could go down that road. It's a great road to go down. Cam Neely for Barry Pedersen was like one of the most lopsided trades of all time. The John Cordick deal with the Leafs. I'm just trying to collect my mind here on what we're talking about and where we're going, because I don't really know where we're going. All right. Well, we'll break, Darren, and come back on this. Again, a Panthers fan in Utah said the Tkachuk trade is the greatest trade in NHL history. It got me thinking maybe he's right. And I haven't seen any arguments yet to say that he's not right. When we come back, we'll get to these other points. We got some NFL stuff to get to with the Moose. Blue Jays, of course, a big win last night and a big start tonight for Max Scherzer. We'll be back in a moment here on Game Plus and streaming.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw, Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center, July 7th. With special guest, Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit shaniatwain.com.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Laquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Hi, my name is Logan Stankoven. And I'm Connor Bedard. We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Welcome back, everybody. The RP Show continues here on this Wednesday. The Moose is with us. John Ohm writes that he says Moose needs some throat lozenges. Oh, I'm sure he's sucking those things back like Tic Tacs. And the thing is, we don't have a lot of time here with Darren. I'm going to push a lot of the other topics I wanted to get to here today into the next segment once Darren adjourns, because I want to get into this Luke Wilson thing a little more. I know you got personal thoughts on that. You're close to the scene. And you're also sitting there in Toronto where all they're talking about is where Mitch Marner is going. So I'm going to give you the floor for a second because you are the guest host. What would you like to talk about, Darren? What would you like to get off your chest here? Haven't even given you the opportunity.
No, we can go anywhere you want to go. You know, this Luke Wilson thing is dominating the timeline on social media for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, you know, in the 25th year, we're still, 6 days away from free agency. We're a little early on that front. I know it's all going to be a lot of the conversation where guys are going to go, who's going to go where, and there's going to be some trades between now and then. But yeah, it feels like everybody wants to talk about Luke Wilson, and I'm okay with it because people are talking about the CFL.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good thing.
Okay, well, everybody's got thoughts, and thank you, Tony from Cochrane. I'm going to push this for after Darren leaves, the conversation of what's the best trade in NHL history. Tony's got a good one out there in Cochrane, Alberta. But Carlos in Indianapolis writes, and he says, Rod got warmed up fast on the warm-up segment. And I'm like, yeah, I did, because I get Luke Wilson. We've now had personal conversations. You don't understand. There's what you see, and then there's what's really going on, okay? So we're all having our conversations amongst football people behind the scenes. That's what I was trying to inform Darren on this morning. I can only assume you were busy, or maybe you were trying to save your throat. But all Luke Wilson is trying to do is cut through the bullshit. That's what he's trying to do. And I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it, but I told him, man, I'm on your side. I've been trying to do it for years. I'm not sure that he's going to be able to do it because of guys like Gary in Winnipeg, who's not a bad guy. He watches this show every day. Gary in Winnipeg, the old fart, Darren, he writes in on the Western Dodge text line, and he says, not sure if you have reviewed Luke Wilson's NFL stats or not. He played for 8 years and had a total receiving yards of 1,307 yards. In my opinion, Wilson does not have any credibility to chastise the CFL game. Wilson could not hold Milt Stiegel's jockstrap. Signed, Gary from Winnipeg. So I'll say it again. what I will say, like Gary's the same guy that wrote in about the 7 of 9 teams not making money in the CFL. If you guys want to watch every day and tune in to talk about all the problems the CFL and mope and dope and piss and moan, this isn't the show for you. This is not the show for you. The guy that wrote in, how much longer can the CFL survive with it? I don't care. Okay? Luke's trying to shake that up and save it. And the old guard are trying to hold him down and give him the thug treatment and shut him up. That's what they're trying to do. And I'm just sitting back going, how is this all going to play out? So there's my thoughts on that. Because I've tried and lost. And given up. Given up! I moved to Florida, for Christ's sakes. Covering the Florida Panthers and the NFL. Get it through your heads. It's not going the right way. Okay. Over to you.
But, in saying all of this, like, there needs to be good stories. There needs to be bad stories. There does. And that's what makes it interesting. Everything can't be great all the time. And the second a guy's pointing out that it's bad in certain areas, we all want to jump on him, which also is a good thing because we want to protect what we love. That's a human instinct to protect the things that we love. But let's have some discussion around it. And hopefully this creates more conversation, more media, more, entertainment, more attention. The more you're talking about it, the more you're thinking about it. The more you're thinking about it, the more you might go to games, buy the merchandise, watch on TV. These are all really important things. NFL has been doing this for a long time, and it's not all great, but you got to get the machine going. And Luke Wilson's doing that. He's talking about all these people who are in the CFL, all the media members, shows like ours getting more attention, all good things. So I think it's good. Embrace it.
Okay. Thanks for that. That's why I wanted to put the ball in your court because I very value your opinion. You're a Canadian football broadcaster. I think you know where Luke Wilson's coming from. Ladies and gentlemen, have a look at your local U Sports football game and look at the stands. This is kind of a little of the line of where Luke Wilson's going. It's dying on the vine. And he's trying to save it, but I'm not sure his crusade's going to work. Janice writes in, she says, well said, Rod. Hashtag Stamps fan in YEG. She's from Edmonton. John Ohm says, bravo, Rod. Positivity is key, bro. Yeah, it is. And the CFL, in a lot of ways, I'll say what it is. I'm going to say it, is very negative and very toxic internally if you actually knew. Like you say, every league has problems. And I guess they do, but that's why with the NFL, I talked about this yesterday after you left, all the people that work together in the NFL work together because I feel they all know that it's a real pleasure. They're just grateful to have that NFL opportunity, so they all work together. I see that at Super Bowl. And you did too, right? What? Come on into Radio Row. Here's what you need. What do you need? What can we help you with? Put this guy on your show. Put that guy. And the CFL is exactly the opposite. And Luke's trying to cut that out and make changes. And the toxic people are trying to silence him, which is another thing. By the way, Luke's age is showing up a little bit here. And you and him are roughly the same age. You're just a little older than him. But like John Ryan came out and said he doesn't agree with Luke on some things. I said I don't agree with Luke on some things. Luke got upset about that. And this is where Luke needs to learn. I'm sorry to be that old guy, but it's true. If you are going to shoot your mouth off, you're going to face the firing squad. I wrote the manual on that. Okay, so you better be damn sure of what you're saying and that you got solid footing under you. And I think Luke has that, but don't get your feelings hurt. After 37 years in this perilous trade, I don't have feelings. You know that. I've said that many times. You can come at me with whatever the hell you want. You're not going to hurt my feelings. But Luke posted a video yesterday that he was basically hurt by what John Ryan said. And I'm like, yeah, that's number one, don't. And number two, don't admit it. This is what I'm asking you because we have not talked since yesterday's show, Darren. How much of this are you following?
I'm following it all, man. You're right. Like, you really can't let this stuff bother you when other people say things, especially when you're going to, be loud and vocal. you can't let it get to you. But I also like the idea that he's being real. You say, don't show everybody that it's bothering you. He's being real. And
Yes.
we haven't had this. Everybody wants to hide behind it and, not be real. He's just being real and putting everything out there with no filter almost, which I also kind of like. And then we're having all these conversations. I think it's great. The more we can talk, the more we can bring all the emotions, opinions, our feelings and thoughts to the surface. No secrets. So then we can move forward. That's how we can move forward. And maybe that'll help in the CFL.
Yeah, well, he's just, I don't know, man. It's a double-edged sword. People write in here, and I see it online all the time. They talk about the attendance, and he's fearful for where the sport is going in Canada. So I think we've said that about 3 or 4 times here today. His heart's in the right place. I'm not sure that his crusade is going to work. NFL. Oh, well, you said you're okay for hockey for a while. You will talk about that more next week. What else is on your mind? Does the Max Scherzer start even move the needle for you tonight? I think you're kind of into the Blue Jays.
Yeah. Canada Day's always been the game we like to go to. It's our Canada Day tradition is to go to the game. So we're planning on that coming up next week. But Max Scherzer, no, not yet. He hasn't really moved the needle in this town in terms of, getting a lot of hype and buzz going. But, the Jays have been a fun little story here. And yeah, it hasn't been as good, lately, but they're still a fun story as we get into summer. I think the Jays, the longer they kind of stay in the conversation, the better.
Yes. Darren, ta-da! You've completed your role today. Go take care of your throat, whatever it is you do. I appreciate you coming on. If you can't make tomorrow, you let me know. Okay?
You got
Appreciate you. All right, Darren Moose DuPont, toughing it out. This throat's a long way from his heart, as they say. We got a lot of topics to get to, and Scruffy's coming up in hour 2. Mitchell Scruffy Blair, award-winning columnist. We'll be right back here on Game Plus.
Hi, my name's Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB. Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center, July 7th. With special guest, Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit ShaniaTwain.com.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
All right, welcome back, everybody. The RP show continues on a Wednesday, bringing it back on the rails. If it was ever on the rails, it's episode number 1522. We're so proudly Canada-wide here on Game Plus Television, but also on the air in 32 U.S. states. And I wanted to tell Darren this story for fun, but for whatever reason, it feels like now, not that it's rushed, but we have more important things to get to than storytelling. But I'll say this to you people before I get into the sports update and some great comments that have come in on the Western Dodge text line. I have never felt so American as I did this morning. And just before you all get triggered on that, I'm a Canadian citizen, but hold a U.S. green card, i.e. permanent resident. I live in both countries, and I love both countries. It's not an either-or thing, okay? I like it both. And so this morning here at the Golden Ticket Sports Center, where, by the way, host your next business staff event here at Golden Ticket Sports Center in Moose Jaw. Experience a unique and dynamic environment, perfect for team building, meetings, and corporate fun. Visit GoldenTicketSportsCenter.com to book your event today. So they got yoga classes going on up here every morning. So I said to the nice lady, how do I get signed up for one of those yoga classes you have? Because I kind of feeling like I need a yoga class. And she says, well, I'm sorry, but how old are you? Are you 55 plus? I said, no, I'm not. And she goes, well, then you don't qualify for the seniors discount in this seniors class. And it would have been $5, but you got to pay this. And I'm like, I'm just going to tell you that if I was in America, I could take you to court because in 55, I won't go further, but I could sue you for ageism and age discrimination if I want. Just telling you, I'm not going to take you to court and sue you for this, but I could. And she broke out laughing. And she's like, maybe I'll just charge you the seniors rate. I'm like, thank you. Never felt so American. I could sue you. Yeah. Darcy in Grand Prairie writes in on this Luke Wilson thing, which is kind of fun. Darcy says, we live in a world where truth tellers are attacked. Thanks, tips. I say that jokingly. You're a good guy, Darcy. You watch every day, but I gave up. But that you all know that you've been watching this show for 1,522 episodes. I've been trying to tell you what's going on with the CFL and Canadian football that's not good, and it wasn't good. And that's why I'm sitting out here hosting my own show. It's going great, by the way, but the people that are protecting that brand of the CFL, which I guess is their job, they don't want to hear it. And that's why we're all kind of shocked that Luke Wilson is on TSN, the only television rights holder, saying the things that he's saying. Because everything that he's saying is true. That's the one, largely it's all true. I don't mind the rules. He's got a problem with that. But there's a lot of things that Luke has a problem with. And by the way, he's not just speaking for himself. You know, he's speaking for a group of people. I'm not going to say who that is. He's the face of it. But it's not going over real well. So I'm just sitting back here wondering how long the CFL allows this to go. Trent in Norway writes in. He says, get better soon, Moose. Great to see Scruffy on the air on the show. Honest opinions are never scarce from him. Stay well, everyone. That's from Trent in Norway. Wayne in Victoria, BC writes in. He says, I love me some Mitchell Scruffy Blair. I haven't seen him in a while living out here in BC. So, folks, Mitchell Scruffy Blair is one of my oldest friends in this business, and he's coming up next hour. He was shocked when I asked him to come on because up until this point, now in Season 7, we haven't had him on the RP show. But as I told you earlier this week, things are new with this program. Things are fresh, and I like it. And thank you, Producer Corey, for that. We're under new ownership. We're under new management. And that's about as far as I want to say. But there's a lot of new fun things going on with this show, and it's very refreshing, and I like it. And Scruffy was a little shocked that I would ask him to come on, and I said, no, we're changing things up. He's so good. He's so good. And he can address all of these things. So for those that have all joined us here today late, like Bill writing in originally from Whitby, Ontario. Now he's in the Queen City. He says, good morning, crew. The first morning coffee on the patio since the knee replacement 2 weeks ago. Well, Bill, thanks for joining. Settle on down and enjoy. Here's the quick 6 show topics of what we've been talking about today. Whoops. We do have breaking news from the NHL. The Edmonton Oilers have traded Evander Kane to the Vancouver Canucks for a 4th-round pick. It's his hometown team. I called his games in junior with the Vancouver Giants. How do we feel about the Evander Kane experiment? He helped get them to 2 Stanley Cups, more so 2 years ago than this past year because he was hurt all year, but he did play in the Stanley Cup final and did Evander Kane things. Took a bunch of dumb penalties, got kicked out of the clinching game, didn't come out for the handshake, and that's kind of what I know of Evander Kane. I wouldn't have him on my team. I said that when the Oilers signed him. And then does history show it was a good signing or not? Probably yes, but you didn't win. I got written down here, Hockey Hall of Fame, which we've hardly talked about at all because so much other things have come down the pipe. I turned on SportsCenter this morning, and it's an NHL draft countdown. Yeah, that's awesome. But there's a lot of other stuff going on. Like this afternoon, I'll be doing the Cats and Bolts podcast, probably our season review, the Florida Panthers show that I do, and Lightning if they were playing. And one of the Panthers fans, David, said that the Matthew Tkachuk trade was the greatest trade in NHL history. And I thought for a second, because everybody's in such a rush to say this is the greatest of all time of anything. And I'm like, is it? I'm like, dag nabbit, I think it is. But, so people have been writing in here on all this. Where the heck is it? I'm not saying he's right or wrong. I'm just passing it along. Tony from Cochrane, Alberta says the Leafs' greatest trade, 1992, when they fleeced the Flames, grabbing Gilmore, McCown, Natras, Walmsley, etc. for a bag of pucks from Toronto. Also the worst trade in history for the Flames. Doug Risebrough pulled this off, did he not? And here's why I don't. I mean, that's a huge trade. And that same Panthers fan sent me a link to the biggest trades in NHL history, and we can all agree that the biggest trade was Wayne Gretzky, August 9th, 1988, but it was not the best trade, not for either team. Yeah, the Oilers went on to win a Stanley Cup 2 years later, but if they kept Gretzky, they'd have won 4 or 5. Ask Wayne. And LA never did win a Stanley Cup. So no, that's not the best trade. The Tkachuk one might. It might be. Colt writes in, he says, how was it being on the BC Lions podcast, Rod? I was grateful to be asked by my good friends out there, Matt Baker, Nick from the Lions office, and Bob Marjanovic, the longtime voice of the Lions. It was great. We previewed this Saturday's game, which we will next hour when Scruffy joins us. That is my vote for the game of the week. Canada's game of the week. That's our poll question. We do it every Wednesday. My vote is BC at Sask Saturday, and by the way, it's running away with it. Don in Navy Don writes in, he says, I'm late to the party here. Luke has pointed out issues. Does he have solutions? In the Navy, we need to hear problems with solutions, not just problems. I think that he has a lot of solutions. Here's the thing about Luke Wilson. I bring his age up again on this. This is not his fault. What I've realized, whether I like it or not, is I've passed over into the age category of where my dad was when he was handing out wisdom, and I look at all the old cronies in the CFL that we looked at and thought maybe they were a little out of touch, and then realized, wait a minute, no, they were the smartest ones because they've been through it all. And I'm now walking that road where those guys were. Luke, it's great that you're standing up and saying this, similar to what you're saying, Don, but you're pointing out things that are all true, that frankly most people know but ignore. The things that Luke has a problem with, by the way, are largely things that money could fix. What do they say? Oh, we could do it. It just takes money, which the CFL doesn't have any, never has had any. And I just was on the phone this morning with a very influential football agent who told me years ago, and he's right, there's a small handful of people taking really big wages out of the CFL. Like, I mean, it doesn't take both hands to count who they are, and I know them by name. And they don't care about anybody else. They're making big money. They don't want anything to change because why would they? So that's not what Luke's problem is, by the way. His is all on field, largely, and development and grassroots and that kind of thing. But I just say good luck and may God have mercy on your soul, because I tried to speak up back in the day and I had my throat slit and tossed overboard. So, and here we are. It's worked out pretty good for me. Which also is the other thing. I mean, Darren brought up there's problems in every league. Yeah, I guess, but the NFL makes so much money they couldn't screw it up if they tried. I think at times they did try. You know, you see that producer Corey laughing about that. He agrees. I mean, with the kneeling, with the flag and the Kaepernick and all that stuff, look at what happened at the draft this year look at what happened with the draft this year with Shadir Sanders falling, and why did he fall? And the owners were accused of racism. I don't know whether but that went away fast. So the NFL has problems, but I'd rather not know what they are. I like covering the NFL, going to the Super Bowl, doing the shows. I don't want to know what's in the sausage at all. No. Or the hot dog, similar to the Florida Panthers. Trust me, 5 seasons ago, I was adding it up this morning, and I was out for my long walk. I'm like, 5 seasons I've been covering the Florida Panthers. I showed up there when there was nobody in the rink at all. And their PR staff said, nobody wants to interview us, so you can put on whoever you want on your show. And we did. Things have changed, but they kept inviting me in and in. And I'm like, I don't want to get in because I don't want to know. I just don't want to know. I just want to enjoy the games and talk about the Panthers and just not know how the sausage is made. Maybe it's bad in there. I don't know. I don't want to look. So that's kind of what I'm saying. I mean, at one time, the CFL was bigger in Canada than the NFL. Those days are gone. The NFL is bigger in Canada than the CFL. And the CFL was at par in Canada with the NHL. Those days are gone. And it's all because of, in my mind, mismanagement and all the things Luke Wilson is saying. But for those that don't know, they want to cut his head off like they did to me. And I don't know if he's going to survive that or not. And I know who he's speaking for, but I'm not going to say who it is, but it's not who you might think it is. Jeff, the Stamps fan, says you should name them, Rod. It's not that hard to figure out, Jeff. It's not that hard to figure out. Scruffy coming up next hour. Oh, it's going to be delicious. We'll be right back here on Game Plus.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center July 7th. With special guest Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit shaniatwain.com.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Hi, my name is Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Welcome to Hour 2, everybody. It's the RP Show. Make yourselves at home because it is your home. Thanks for allowing us into your home or your truck or car or camper or whatever you're listening to us on here on streaming, found on all major podcast platforms, and more than anything, on your televisions, on Game Plus, all across Canada and in 32 U.S. states. Mitchell Scruffy Blair coming up in Hour 2, one of my oldest friends in this business. And I'll say this, Mitch is like your favorite pair of shoes. Notice I didn't say your old pair of shoes, your favorite pair of shoes. The kind that I put on when I go for a very long walk, like I did this morning in Waccamaw Valley, because it feels good, you know what you're going to get, and it's easy. Right? That's Mitchell Scruffy Blair. My great friend coming up in the next segment, making his RP Show debut. He will have thoughts on all of these topics, okay? Quick Six Show Horn, available in stores. Number one, we opened with hockey because it is Canada, by the way, and we could do 2 solid hours on hockey. Most shows do in this country. As a matter of fact, let me read this. Breaking news. Breaking news. Evander Kane is moving on from Edmonton. The 33-year-old winger posted a goodbye on social media this morning, thanking the Edmonton Oilers organization, his teammates, and Edmonton's fans. We later learned he's been dealt to the Vancouver Canucks for a 4th-round pick. We addressed it an hour ago when Moose was with us. My quote, which will be a meme, is, Vancouver, he's your problem now. Just not a fan, okay? Taking dumb penalties in the Stanley Cup final. I'd love to hear from the Oilers fans. How do you look back on the last 2 years with Evander Kane? Would you do it again? Because I'm sure there's a lot of Evander Kane fans and certainly Oilers fans that say, hey, we've been in the last 2 Stanley Cup finals. That coincided with him being here. Not saying that's wrong. Which, speaking of coinciding, later on this afternoon, I'll be doing the live Cats and Bolts podcast, putting a wrap on the Florida Panthers season. And a Panthers fan in Utah wrote me, David, he watches our show every week, the Panthers show. He goes, the Tkachuk trade was the greatest trade in NHL history. And I'm like, wait, maybe it was. Acquired 3 years ago, 3 Stanley Cup final appearances, 2 Stanley Cup wins. It might have been. And you have to factor what went the other way. Jonathan Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weegar, they're great guys and they're great players. Was it the greatest trade ever? It's in the conversation. And that, of course, morphed off into a discussion that wasn't really weird or wrong, but people talked about the Cam Neely, Barry Pedersen trade, obviously the Gretzky trade. These are all different trades for different reasons. One was the biggest trade. One was the most lopsided trade. That's not what we're saying. What was the best trade? Well, Nieuwendyk for Iginla. That was the most even trade ever, right? So we'll talk about it more this afternoon. Just saying, I thank David in Utah for that. By the way, Daryl from Calgary writes in. He's a hockey guy with the Eagles. He writes in on the Western Dodge text line. Proud partners of the RP Show, Western Dodge and Moose Jaw. Big city selection with small town service. I can verify that to be a fact. He says, when will you be in Okotoks for the Scouting Hall of Fame ceremony and a Dogs game, Rod? Also, is the guru of hockey scouting, Graham Tour, in the Scouting Hall of Fame? I'm not real sure. You'd have to look it up, number one. Number two, I'll be out there July 29th, broadcasting live from the Sheraton Calgary Airport Hotel. So if you want to come down live, you can on July 29th. And then July 30th, we haven't told Overtime Hockey Lanes this yet, but we're going to be broadcasting live from Overtime Hockey Lanes the next day, July 30th. Now, if that all works out, that's what I want to do, and I can't see Randy and Michelle saying no, but I have not had time to call them. Now you know. Ron in Calgary writes in, he says, Edmonton is on their way to a positive change. Corey Perry and Darnell Nurse next. Just passing it along. See, continuing with the hockey thing. It's Canada. We could do this all day, every day. Most shows do. Alexander McGillney's long wait for the Hockey Hall of Fame is over. On the 17th try, the high-scoring Russian winger was selected as part of the induction class for the Hockey Hall of Fame for 2025, along with Joe Thornton, Zdeno Chara, Duncan Keith, Brianna Decker, and Jennifer Botterill. And so now, with McGillney getting in, which, by the way, I don't think he was snubbed for any particular reason, blackballed per se. Jeremy Roenick, I believe, was, but Roenick went in last year. Now there's only one guy left. You know who that is? Our little buddy Theo. When does he get in? I wanted to talk about the draft countdown with Moose, but we didn't even get to it. We moved on. A 2.2 CFL Week 4, because I want to talk about the games. And this is what they are in Week 4. And it's the poll that we do every day, but every Wednesday, the poll specifically is what's Canada's game of the week. So Thursday, it's the Edmonton Elks at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Friday, the Montreal Alouettes at the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Saturday, the BC Lions at the Saskatchewan Roughriders. That's got my vote. And Sunday, Toronto at Ottawa. Running away with the poll, and I have it actually in front of me here. I did anyways. Let me call it up. Winning the poll is BC at Saskatchewan, 69% of the vote, 12% voting for Edmonton at Winnipeg, 10% voting for Montreal at Hamilton, and 9% voting for Toronto at Ottawa. We'll talk more about that next segment with Scruffy if time allows. But somehow, I will get into this here, but we spent probably more time than I would have liked on it last hour. But Luke Wilson of the CFL on TSN, Super Bowl winning tight end with the Seahawks. He says he's going to be the truth teller, and he's going to call out everything that's wrong with the CFL. He's been saying it for weeks. I think he has bitten off more than he bargained for. I don't know him well enough to say whether he's going to be able to chew it or not. I don't know if he's able to handle the storm that's come his way. I'd like to think so. But we talked about it last hour. He wants to call out everything that's wrong and certain people out that's wrong with the CFL. And his heart's in the right place. Let's put it that way. I'm saying, may God have mercy on your soul. Because as a business leader said to me, nobody has ever won going up against the man, whatever that may be, the government, the league, the team brand. For all those of us that have worked in sports our whole lives in media, nobody's ever won calling out the man. And in this case, the CFL is still the man. So I know what Luke's trying to do. I don't know if he's going to be successful or not. And I've told him personally, he's got my support. We're on the same team here. So there's that. So that was part of the discussion. Point 3, Blue Jays. All eyes will be focused on the mound tonight when Max Scherzer starts for the Toronto Blue Jays in the second installment of their 3-game series with the Guardians in Cleveland. The 40-year-old pitcher has been on the injured list since March due to a thumb ailment that limited him to just 3 innings in his first and only start with the Jays. Righty Gavin Williams will pitch for the Guardians, who lost 10-6 to the Blue Jays last night. And that was a thrill. Here's the thing. Everybody complains and fights and bitches and moans. That seems to be a Canadian thing. But I don't know that you understand how great you do have it. And one of the joys of this country is being able to watch Sportsnet Blue Jays broadcasts every night. That is a treasure, man. Whether it's Jamie Campbell, who we invited to come on this show this week, and he wasn't available, but he will be on, the host of Blue Jays broadcast. Buck, obviously, the Shulmans, because it's now a family in the broadcast booth. They got a really great thing going on with the Toronto Blue Jays. Do you know that? Are you aware of that? Do you appreciate that? Mitchell Scruffy Blair, who's coming up in the next segment, does not appreciate it. He's a Blue Jays hater and a Cubs fan. That's something that we could talk about for a couple hours with the old Scruff dog. But moving on, point 4. Aaron Rodgers telling Pat McAfee yesterday that this will be his last year in the National Football League. Is that indeed the top story? I wanted to spend a little more time with Moose last hour, but that is just breakneck, man. We're trying to get through all the topics with Moose in 40 minutes, and we largely do it, but I have no idea how. I have got to figure this out. On ESPN, pardon the interruption, they cover more things in less time. I guess they're just better than us, and that would not surprise anybody. But we try to get into the issues as much as we can, and it's not easy. Never did get to the NFL with Moose. Is, in fact, Aaron Rodgers going to Pittsburgh the biggest story in the NFL this year? I did my top 10 yesterday. Moose says I nailed it. And that I'll get into that with Scruffy next, because he's a Seahawks fan too, a Luke Wilson lover, a John Ryan lover. And one of my top 10 is, Sam Darnold and Cooper Kupp. How will they fare in Seattle? I mean, Seattle hasn't necessarily really been bad for a long time, but they've changed out quarterbacks. Cooper Kupp is signed in his home state. It's a hell of a story. We'll get into that with Scruffy next segment. Point 5 of the Quick 6 show topics. Cooper Flagg is expected to go number 1 to Dallas in tonight's NBA draft, stepping in as the Mavericks' new franchise star after they traded Luka Doncic to the LA Lakers. The 18-year-old Duke forward shone in his lone college season and is widely seen as a can't-miss prospect. The Toronto Raptors will select 9th. And here's my thinking, because I'm been in the States a while. I'm like, Cooper Flagg, talk about bursting onto the scene, but he's only 18. He's shone, yes, but come March Madness, which was the worst March Madness ever, look it up, he was hurt. Did he even get onto the floor? I find it really interesting. The personnel people do not miss, though. If they feel, especially like in any league, I'm pretty good at picking out a hockey player. Not bad at picking out a football player, but I wouldn't even try to pick out a basketball player. But if these guys say at 18, Cooper Flagg is all that, I believe them. Good morning, Kevin the Medium, who will be on this show tomorrow from the Hughes Sports Podcast. I watched your show last night, Kevin. I heard you drop an F-bomb. I'm just letting you know that I saw it. Tony from Cochrane, Alberta, writes in, and he says, feet, my biggest old age symptom. Orthotics in my shoes make them all uncomfortable. Love Skechers, though. Well, I don't know. My favorite shoes are ones that I was specially fitted for last fall in Florida. So as I say, Mitchell Blair is like your favorite pair of shoes, not your old shoes, because Mitch isn't old, but your favorite pair of shoes. They make you feel good. You know what you're going to get. That's Mitchell Scruffy Blair, and he's coming up next. He might even be logged in already. I'm not sure. I don't even know. I hope he didn't hear that, because I don't want him to hear these good things. It'll go to his head. Navy Don writes in, he says, Canada's greatest strength is that we are so close to the USA. Our greatest weakness is that we are so close to the USA. Yeah, I guess, man. I don't know. I don't know. We all have our own opinions. That's the one thing that I've learned here. And that this goes back to the Luke Wilson thing here. Luke has his very strong opinions, and he's not the only one. I've seen this in a lot of people lately that have this attitude that if you all would listen to me, you'd all be better off. That is never going to happen, because not everybody's it's not the way the brain works. It's not how society is, and we're not all going to get along. We need to realize that. We would all like to hold hands and sing like the Coca-Cola commercial. That's never going to happen. So we need to learn to coexist with different opinions. And I'm sure, by the way, please don't scream in my ear again. So when Mitch joins us next, he'll have a lot of thoughts on Luke Wilson, because Luke actually put Mitch on his bull list. And I don't know whether I'm going to be on that list or not, because I dared disagree with Luke on Monday's show. And he said that my meme that we put out was clickbait and not accurate. I said, welcome to the media in 2025, Luke. He threatened to put me on his numpty list. I said, we don't respond to threats. So I'm a pretty hard guy to argue with, just so you know. I do a lot of work with the military, primarily in Canada, but also U.S. on mental health and addiction recovery. And don't threaten me with anything. So I guess the thing is, Luke has jumped into the pool, the deep end, head first. And I think he knew what he jumped into, but he's getting more, I think, than what he bargained for. Big Bob writes in, he says, how about our Canadian talent making it to the NFL? Obviously, our football programs in Canada are doing great. Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's not my thing. I look at I saw a meme the other day that said, for the first time in the history of sport, the reigning MVP of the NHL, MLB, Finals, and NBA are all Canadian. First time ever. Freddie Freeman, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and I guess Sam Bennett, NBA of the Finals. Conn Smythe Trophy winner, obviously Canadian. Or the Hart Trophy. Colt Alvarez writes in and says, shots fired, LOL. Kevin the Medium writes in, he says, way more than one F-bomb. It was one of those shows. Sometimes a well-placed F-bomb helps. Oh, we're going to talk about Evander Kane going to the Vancouver Canucks next with Scruffy. But Kevin, you tell me, you're the big Canucks fan. You're the biggest Canucks fan that I know. How do you feel about Evander Kane going to the Canucks from Edmonton? My quote on it is, Vancouver, he's your problem now. And that's going to trigger some people. I mean, again, back to this Luke Wilson thing. One thing that I just don't think he's understood about the media is if you shoot your mouth off, that's totally fine. You will face the firing squad. And you may be right. I got fired for being right. Right? It doesn't. I had a baseball friend in North Dakota who said being right is not a full-time paying job. So I know Scruffy has some very loquacious thoughts on this, and he will join us next. The award-winning Mitchell Scruffy Blair coming in next, making his RP show debut. We're live on the Game Plus television network, streaming live as well.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Hi, my name's Logan Stankoven. And I'm Connor Bedard. We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB. Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center, July 7th. With special guest, Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit ShaniaTwain.com.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
The RP show continues. I will tell you that the Western Dodge text line is open, 902-518-3033. Drive with confidence. Shop Western Dodge and Moose Jaw. Financing, selection, and service you can count on. Mitchell Scruffy Blair joins us. I don't know if you heard the big intro, Scruffy. I said one of my oldest friends in the business, you, and you're not short of opinions. Can I read you a text first from the Western Dodge text line? Fake Gainer, now known as Brother Sasko, writes in. He says, "Hi, Rod Father. I'm patiently awaiting my arch rival's appearance. Hashtag bring it on, Scruffy." They're excited to see you, my dog. They're excited to see you.
Is this 2019? Did we have a pre-show meeting? I'm lost here, buddy.
There's no
when did
pre-show
you
meeting.
learn the word loquacious? Is that what the Florida lifestyle is giving you now?
Something like
Loquacious?
that. Listen, Scruffy, here's the thing, people. He is like Herschel Walker. You can't stop Scruffy. You can only hope to contain him. Here are our topics, Mitch, of the Quick Six show. Here's the topics. Evander Kane, now a Vancouver Canuck, dealt from Edmonton today for a 4th-round pick. Just hang on. Point 2 is week 4 in the CFL. What's Canada's game of the week? We're going to get to that. Also, Luke Wilson under fire. Point 3, the Blue Jays and MLB. The Jays are in a wild card spot, as you know. Point 4, any NFL notes you may find interesting. Point 5, the NBA draft goes tonight. And point 6, randoms, as if anything could be more random than what I just said. What are you globbing onto?
Well, right now, obviously, Luke Wilson's comments about the CFL have gotten everybody riled up, whether it be in a good way or a bad way. The best thing about this is that Luke Wilson has people across the country talking about the Canadian Football League. Was Luke Wilson wrong with what he said the other night? No, I don't think he was. If Brett Lather does not miss that field goal, we aren't talking about a great football game. And I hate to break this to people, but the final 2 minutes of a football game doesn't make up for 60 minutes of action. And the first 57 and a half minutes of that game was pure trash. Pure trash. Now, some people have said, I liked it. That's fine. That's your opinion. My opinion, and the opinion of some others, is that game wasn't very good. And we haven't seen a lot of very good football games in the CFL this year, but we are still in that feeling out phase, I think, where short season. You need 2 or 3 games to really get on the same page. So I'm expecting things to get a lot better moving forward, but let's not kid anybody here, Roddy. The CFL is not what it was 20 years ago when it was in its heyday, when you had guys like Allen and Dunnigan and Ham and Calvillo and Austin throwing the football. The talent just isn't there anymore. There is a lot of good talent, and I'm not banging on the players when I say that, but it just doesn't seem to be the same. And I think because of that, attendance is down. You have more young people that want to watch the National Football League and the NCAA than the CFL, even though the CFL has a 3-month head start on those other 2 leagues. The marketing issue, you and I have talked about that for years. Can someone please tell me why there isn't a CFL player in a corporate campaign in Canada? Chase Brown can do an Advil commercial. We can't get Nathan Rourke doing a commercial. We can't get Trevor Harris doing a commercial.
I'm going to stop you for a second. Kevin, the medium, has written in, and he will be in your guest spot, in this spot tomorrow from the Hughes Sports Podcast out of Calgary, where they talk primarily BC sports, but also CFL. He says, I need to ask the obvious question. What will help the CFL? So just hang on. I think Mitch was going down that road, but time is limited here, and I do not want to spend it all on the CFL's problems. I said it last hour. If people come here and want to piss and moan about what's wrong with the CFL, you're watching the wrong show. It's a sports talk show. It's not all that. Evander Kane traded from Edmonton to Vancouver today. You're the biggest Oiler fan I know. What is that era, that 2-year era for Kane? How do you look at it? How will it be remembered?
Evander Kane did a lot of good things with the Edmonton Oilers, and I will be the first to admit I didn't think he would be strong in the playoffs after missing all season due to the injuries he had last year. But he did. He was a key component up until the Stanley Cup final, and then, like the rest of the Oilers, he got off his game because of the Florida Panthers and the way they played the game. I think him going to Vancouver, I have no problem with it. I'm surprised that Edmonton doesn't have to retain salary. Obviously, this is a move that's being made to free up money for Evan Bouchard. It's money that's going to be used to free up for Connor Brown and Corey Perry, who won't cost a lot of money. I expect Victor Arvidsson to be traded perhaps by the end of the day. We all know about the Connor McDavid thing, and sorry, Toronto, Connor will be staying in Edmonton for at least 5 years. And we go from there. But I have no problem with the Evander Kane move today. I think it's a good move. I am surprised that he goes to a division rival. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Vancouver Canucks maybe flip him before the regular season starts. And I think Evander Kane would fit great as a member of the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, but was he, well, number one, he's a Vancouver Canuck. And you're saying they might be flipped, yeah. But was signing him a good move? At the time, I didn't think it was, and I still don't think it was. Although I would think Ken Holland would probably say, yeah, well, they went to 2 straight cups with him. So was it a good move or not?
I think it was. I think it was because I think he did have an impact on that team when he was healthy. When he wasn't, certainly, as any player, he's not going to play up to his standard. But Evander Kane had a great playoff, and he had a great playoff the year before as well, before he had to basically call it quits because of the injury. Yes, injuries did hurt Evander in his time in Edmonton. You remember he got his wrist slashed, and I think it was Tampa Bay. But I had no problem with the signing. I thought he came in and did a very good job. He behaved himself, which I think was the big question coming in as to whether or not he was going to be a real issue in the room, and I don't think he was. So, Evander leaving, if he was only making $3 million, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. But at 5, when you've got so many things that you've got to do, Evander Kane ends up being the guy that leaves. And as I said, I don't think he'll be the first one off that team that lost Game 6 to the Panthers to not be on the ice opening night wearing an Oilers sweater.
Flip this, and then we're going to have to go back to the CFL. Mark in Melfort writes in, he says the CFL does not do marketing very well. Scruffy is right. We're going to come back on the BC Sask game in a second, but we have a lot of viewers in BC. Examine this from a Canucks perspective. Evander Kane for a 4th. Good move for them or not?
is. Evander Kane is going into his free agent year, so I would expect to have a nice year. The Canucks are going to lose Brock Besser to free agency, so he can maybe different player than Brock Besser, but can still produce. And I think the Canucks are okay with that. And of course, I'd have to take a look at the lineup, but obviously when the Abbotsford Canucks win the Calder Cup, you're going to be bringing some guys up. And the Cup's in Canada, Roddy, but it's the Calder Cup. So, I think it's a good deal for Vancouver. Like I said, if they were to flip him, I'd like to see what they could get for him. But when you're going to lose Brock Besser, you lost JT Miller, I think this is going to be a good move for Vancouver. If he keeps his head on straight, and that's the big question.
Yeah, no kidding. You said he would you say he behaved himself? As far as we know, he did in Edmonton, I guess, right? From what he has done in past stops. NFL,
right, and I think that had he...
Hang on, no. We're moving on.
All
I
right.
said we got to go
All
fast. Right. 1 year ago, our viewers voted that the top story going into the NFL season was the Kansas City Chiefs three-peat, and as we know, they didn't do it. This year, I'm guessing that Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh in his last season, as he announced on Pat McAfee, is the number one story. But maybe I'm wrong. What do you have as the number one story going into the NFL season here?
I could care less about Aaron Rodgers and where he's playing football. I'm so tired of Aaron Rodgers. We saw that his time with the Jets was a complete and utter disaster. I can't wait to see Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers go at it, which will happen at some point. The big story to me is the fact that Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions, who was a team, as you know, had no problems moving up and down the field, leaves the Lions to take over the division rival Chicago Bears, and now he is the guy that is guiding Caleb Williams. And everybody thinks that Caleb Williams is going to be the next big thing in the NFL. I'm not so certain of that. And right now, Jaden Daniels is the guy that has that honor. But I think that Ben Johnson going to Chicago and the Bears are trying to build a team around him. I think the Bears are going to make some noise this year. And that's something we haven't heard for a long time. I think that's one of the bigger stories going in. And also the fact that the Cincinnati Bengals, who have always been on the cusp and got to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, but they managed to keep both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to contracts. And in a very tough division where you've also got the Baltimore Ravens, it's going to be very interesting to see just how that division pans itself out this year as the Ravens and Bengals go at it.
Your wife, Mrs. Scruffy, told me that you have a small-sized statue of Pete Carroll on your nightstand right beside your bed because of his time in Seattle.
That's gone now.
Oh, no, it is?
Gone now.
What'd you replace it with?
That's gone now. Nothing. I think there's maybe a Connor McDavid.
You're waiting. Yeah, McDavid one. Okay. Is Pete Carroll going to weave that same Seahawk magic, but in Vegas? John Ryan yesterday said he thinks they're going to win 11, 12 games.
Not with Geno Smith as the quarterback. He's not. I don't think the Raiders are going anywhere this year. I think the Raiders in that division, I think Denver's a better team than the Raiders. I think Kansas City obviously is a better team than the Raiders, and the Chargers might be a better team than the Raiders. I just don't see that. And being a Seattle fan, I wasn't a big fan of Geno Smith, and I love the fact that Sam Darnold is there, hoping he can do what he did last year with the Vikings. But I'm not sold on the Vegas Raiders, and just the fact that Pete Carroll is there, that means nothing to me.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Totally.
Pete Carroll, love what he did for the Seahawks. Wish he would have ran the ball in the Super Bowl from the 1 yard line instead of trying to make Russell Wilson the hero, but that's another story for another time.
Okay, well, let's just stay in the Pacific Northwest for a second. I feel like those viewers are going to be loving you up there here on Game Plus, where we're carried in Oregon and Washington State on TDS cable. Mitchell Blair is a quote machine. You're all finding it out right now. And I told you, Mitch, we're under new ownership. We're under new management. Everything's new here at the RP Show. Nobody knows, but now you know. But the Seahawks have Sam Darnold there and Cooper Kupp. Second year, I think, right, under their coach McDonald. It's a big change up there.
Yep.
What do you see in 2025 for them?
I see a team that will probably compete for a playoff spot again. Right now, the LA Rams are the class of that division, but I can see Seattle perhaps winning the division if things go right. I can see them being a wild card team. Sam Darnold and Cooper Kupp, does Cooper Kupp replace DK Metcalf? Well, you can argue about that, but they've got Jackson Smith and Jigba, who I think is in for a monster season. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet as the running backs. I think those guys are, solid, and you need 1A and 1B guys to succeed in running backs in the NFL. And we'll see what Darnold can do. The defense is good. We'll see what they can do. But I think that's a team that has the potential of being a playoff team. And once you get into the playoffs, Roddy, you just never know how things are going to work out.
Interesting what you say about Cooper Kupp versus DK Metcalf. I mean, different players, different style of players,
Yes.
but if the production's the same, then it doesn't matter what their style is. Okay, back to the Canadian Football League and Saturday's game, BC Lions at Saskatchewan Roughriders. I voted it for Canada's Game of the Week. I'm sure you would agree. Lynch, our old buddy Lynch, let me slip into Lynch mode. He would say this is an ESBG, an early season big game, because that's what it is, Mitch. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Is Nathan Rourke going to play or not? That's the big question. If Nathan Rourke plays, I think we're in for a good football game. If Jeremiah Masoli plays, I think the Riders win this one going away. I picked BC at the start of the season to win the Grey Cup. I think the combination of Nathan Rourke with Buck Pierce is something that when Rourke gets healthy, and of course we know he got hurt in week 2 with the oblique. But if he plays, we're at Mosaic Stadium, so you got to give the edge to the Riders, and I think they're favored by 5.5 right now, the last time I looked. But if Nathan Rourke plays, I would take BC to cover that game.
You're that big of a believer in Nathan Rourke. Well, but that's a fact.
I think.
Yeah, if he plays, they win generally, unless it's against Winnipeg. But when he doesn't play, they have no chance. But that's similar to any CFL team, really, without their number one quarterback. No.
Agreed. And as I said, if Jeremiah Masoli plays, I think the Riders win this game by double digits if he's the starting quarterback. But BC, obviously, like a lot of other teams, are better when your number one guy's in. Are the Riders good when Trevor Harris is out of the lineup? No. Are the Hamilton Tiger Cats good when Bo Levi Mitchell's out of the lineup? No. Are the Edmonton Elks, Eskimos, whatever you want to call them these days, are they good when Trey Ford's out of the... Well, yeah, that's maybe a bad case.
Yeah, the Elkamos. Janice in Edmonton writes in, she's a Stampeders fan. She says, some of us see the CFL league office competing with teams in marketing. Teams are trying to get fans in the stands with no dollars from the league office. Their dollars going to promoting TV coverage. Signed, #StampsFan and YEG. How do we know what money goes back and forth and what? This is the whole thing, Mitch. We'll end it on this, and we do have a couple minutes, and maybe you'll put it in your weekend column, which Mitch always writes at rodpeterson.com on that. But the finger pointing, who's to blame? All the excuses, to me, it's over. Unless we sit here and go, which I kind of am, if COVID doesn't kill the CFL, nothing will. So I don't really care. I just want to watch the games. I don't know why this is always a topic.
Yeah, I do too. And I do enjoy watching the games. And, the TCasts are not as bad as people think they are. People here in Saskatchewan can't stand Glenn Suter, and I don't understand that. Suter's so negative. Well, no, he's not. And if you'd actually watch the game and take a good view at it, you'd see he's not. And if you don't like Glenn Suter, then here's an idea. It's like people, when they got mad that Jack Michaels and Louis DeBrusque weren't going to do the Stanley Cup final because Cuthbert moved in, which was obvious because he was the number one guy, him and Craig. If you don't like hearing them, then mute the game and listen to the radio call. Because all you want is somebody who's going to just basically blow smoke up your you-know-what and be favorable towards the team that you cheer for. So listen to the radio call where you're going to get that complete biased view. And you know what I'm talking about, Rod, because we used to be a part of that.
What did you say is going to be the next slogan on Saskatchewan's license plates? Can you fill everybody in on that?
We're going to bitch about today.
Welcome to Saskatchewan. What are we going to bitch about today? Wayne in BC writes, and he says, as I remembered, Scruffy is a great guest and analyst, especially on football. So you've got at least one fan out there, Scruffy. Wayne in Victoria, BC says, you killed it as he remembered. I knew you would, Mitch. We got 40. Well, you got 15 seconds left, maybe 30. Any last words from you?
Good talking to you again.
Yes. Can we count on you doing this again?
We might be able to do it a time or two.
Okay, sounds good. Don't exit out just yet, everybody. 902-518-3033 is the Western Dodge text line. We've got a sports update coming up and viewer takeover the rest of the way, right up until the top of the hour. Whatever you would all like to talk about. Bye, Scruffy. Great job. Great to see you as always. You're watching the RP Show live on Game Plus Television, streaming live, and of course, found on all major podcast platforms.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center July 7th. With special guest Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit shaniatwain.com.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Hi, my name is Logan Stankoven. And I'm Connor Bedard. We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It is the RP Show, and we're coming at you on Game Plus Television. Episode number 1522. The fans really loved Scruffy. John Ohm says, where is it? That's great news. More Scruffy. Oh, you'll love him. You'll love him. Where is this John Ohm comment? Oh, he just says, great interview. Clifford. What's your deal, Clifford? Reveal yourself. He's written in about the Montreal Canadiens. He says Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Demidov, Gooley, Hudson. I'd say the Habs are just beginning. Ole, 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 ole. Expectations are high. Says the random Habs fan out of nowhere. That's why I'm saying, where are you watching from? Please let me know. We're very big in Eastern Canada. And part of the reason for that, I will tell you this. We started, for those that don't know, June 2nd, 2019, on Facebook only. That was our lone broadcast platform, and it was pretty cool because we had every single day, Ryan, our technical producer, would walk into our meeting room, the bullpen, whatever you want to call it, with a laptop, and he's like, here's all our viewers. And then after a few weeks, they're like, our quickest rising region for viewership is Ontario, which shocked the hell out of me because all we talked about was Western Canadian stuff. But what I realized is that the Ontarians got tired, I think, of Leafs talk. Like, how much can you talk about where Mitch Marner's going to go? I get that that's all they talk about, but how much can you talk about it? So we talk about other things. We're the show for the rest of Canada. How about that? Airing on the television channel, anchored out of Toronto on Game Plus. So, as I've said, we've tried to ease into things. We got the new production company. We have new ownership. We have new management, new guest bookers, all the rest. Everything's new. Trois-Rivières, Quebec. That's where he's from. Three Rivers, Quebec. Okay. Thank you. Wolf, look at that. There's another Easterner just loving the RP show. So here's the deal on the Evander Kane trade. The Edmonton Oilers have dealt Evander Kane to the Vancouver Canucks for a fourth-round draft pick. Kane broke the news Wednesday morning, posting a goodbye on social media. Both the Canucks and Oilers later issued releases on the trade, which sees Vancouver receive the 33-year-old Kane, while Edmonton gets a fourth-round pick in this week's NHL draft. There is 1 year left on Kane's 4-year, $20.5 million deal he signed with Edmonton as a free agent in January of 2022. He did not play a single regular season game this year as he recovered from surgeries to repair both abductors, 2 hernias, 2 ab tears, and a knee injury. But the 6'2", 218-pound forward joined the Oilers for Game 2 of their first-round playoff series against the LA Kings and contributed 6 goals and 6 assists in 21 postseason games before Edmonton fell to Florida in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final. Hailing from Vancouver, he played junior hockey for the WHL's Vancouver Giants before getting picked 4th overall by the Thrashers in the 2009 draft. And that's why Mitchell Scruffy Blair was so valuable, because he's an Oilers fan. And now in today's media world, because I've caught where the wind's blowing from, checked the temperature, that's the way that it is. Let's get Mitch on and ask him about Evander Kane and what's the memories of Evander Kane. Is this a positive time in Edmonton for him? I guess largely, but they're not keeping him. They're shipping him out. So there's a lot behind that. The sports update is brought to you by Heavy Gym. Your best self is just a challenge away. Push your limits, conquer your goals, and become the strongest version of you. Visit us at heavygym.ca, where transformation happens. And that's why I didn't want to get hung up on all that stuff on the negative CFL talk, because there's things with Mitch that I wanted to get to that I wasn't even able to get to because we got hung up on all the other things. I wanted to get to that discussion of what's the greatest NHL trade ever. And while I understand that it's somewhat subjective, it depends who you cheer for, how old you are even. There was a Panthers fan that said to me the Matthew Tkachuk trade from the Flames is the greatest trade ever. And while initially I was going to say no, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe it is. I didn't even get to that with Mitch. But I do want to say Ted and Red Deer may have quashed that whole talk because he brought up the Butch Goring deal. And that trade, they got a Did he end up being the captain? Because the captain was Denny Potvin and Clark Gillies. I don't think Butch was ever the captain, but that's fine. Tkachuk isn't the captain of the Panthers. But they went on to 4 Stanley Cups. But guess what? The Panthers may be on their way to 4 Stanley Cups too. So anyways, Canada's Game of the Week is the poll question. It just popped up in my face. We'll talk about that and more in overtime when we come back after this.
Hi, my name's Logan Stankoven. And I'm Connor Bedard. We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center, July 7th. With special guest, Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit ShaniaTwain.com.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Okay, welcome back, everybody, for Overtime here. It's proudly brought to you by our good friends at Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary, and we'll be seeing them in late July when we're out there for the Western Canada Scouting Foundation Hall of Fame induction. My dad is going into that posthumously with 28 of his scouting buddies, and I just can't wait to see them at Overtime Hockey Lanes. And I'm hoping to do a live show from there as well. Either way, you can check it out almost every day. Monday, I believe, is the only day they're closed. Family-run business where skill and fun collide. An amusement park for hockey players. Check them out at 28th Street Northeast. They've always got the latest technology, new stuff going on. I love that place. So in overtime, I would say that we got through the sports update. I will say this again. We know we got hung up a little bit on some other topics today, but that's okay. It's the Rod Pedersen Show. I'm in charge. That's what makes it fun. But I want to say this for Heavy Jim. Max Scherzer returns to the mound tonight as the Blue Jays continue their 3-game set in Cleveland. The 40-year-old righty has been out since March with a thumb injury after throwing just 3 innings in his Jays debut. Toronto took the opener 10-6 last night and will face Guardians righty Gavin Williams in Game 2 tonight. So for the baseball fans, there you go. For sure, the biggest trade news of the day, or the biggest news, is Evander Kane being dealt from Edmonton to Vancouver. Gary writes in from Penticton, Gary with 2 R's. He says, bad move on the Canucks. They need a lot more than him. Congrats on the show. Thank you, Gary. I don't know if congratulations are in order other than on the cusp of our 7th season. I just find it there are no coincidences, right? Very woo-woo that under 1,499 shows with our old production partner, our 1,500th is with our new production partner, Skycron, and producer Corey and his fabulous staff. New ownership, new management, pretty much new everything, and largely you didn't even notice a difference, did you? But there is a new fresh air around the program, and I love it. Ron in Calgary writes in, and he says, Scruffy knows his business. Side note, Robertson from Dallas for Anderson from Calgary. Ron, you're a great guy. You're a Rider fan. That's you, a great guy, and I know you're a Flames fan, but what are you talking about? What you did by saying that is make me rush to tsn.ca and say, oh, did Jason Robertson get dealt from Dallas to Calgary for Rasmus Anderson? I haven't seen that anywhere. My notifications aren't going off. And I will tell you this, hockey is my number one sport. I love it the most, but I can't stand this time of year. Even this morning, the insiders are screaming, and they're all great friends of mine, Pierre LeBrun, Elliot Friedman, all those guys, Dreger. They're all yelling all over top of each other about who's saying this, and Marchand's going to stay or it's a coin flip if Marchand stays. But Bennett, I can't do it. Clifford writes in. He says, I'm from Saskatchewan. I heard about this show from a bud. Well, Clifford, welcome on in. We're 1,522 episodes in. So a lot's gone down in the last 7 years. Glad to have you here since I left my role as voice of the Rough Riders. But I will say this, because I met in that time with a lot of different broadcast entities over the years. One thing I was told by a Calgary radio station when I said, I spent a lot of time in Calgary, right? The last few years until I settled in Florida, bought a house, and that's home, Florida. They said, yeah, you know hockey, clearly. That's your thing. But people just can't get over you being the Rider guy here. Okay. Sure. That's not anybody's fault. As a matter of fact, the guy actually said, it's like pro wrestling. Once you are, a heel, it's very hard to become a good guy or whatever. I'm like, well, okay then. I got a lot of years of working left. And if nobody can get past me being the Rough Riders guy, which I haven't been, what are we doing? So I'll just go start a show in Florida, which incidentally will air this afternoon, live streaming 3:35 p.m., the Cats and Bolts podcast. It'll be our season finale there. Just so you know. BW in Edmonton writes in, he says, if Rod is happy, the RP squad is happy. You would think, but that's not necessarily the case. Scott in Vancouver writes in and he says, Nordique pour toujours, which you didn't know. I was bilingual coming out of high school. You're saying Nordique always. Are you saying that, or was that their slogan? I can read French and can speak it. I know just enough to get around the strip clubs in Montreal. I know just enough. That's all you need, producer Corey says. Served me well. Paul in Humboldt writes in with what I can only assume is a rhetorical comment or question. He says, the story is the Evander Kane trade is for cap reasons. Does the NHL investigation of the Oilers LTIR use for Kane contribute to the trade? I don't know. That's why I say it's a rhetorical comment. I don't know. I know that we all, as sports fans, and I'll put myself in that and say we're fans, we want to know the answers behind this. We won't always find out the answers to this. Mark in Burlington, Ontario writes in. He says, hey, Rod, Luke Wilson says there are too many quarterback sneaks. He does not understand the 3-down game. With 2 downs to get a first down, sneaks are crucial. Oh, I think he does understand it because he's coaching U18 football in Ontario. But the one thing that I've realized here, I think, with Luke Wilson is that he's gotten kind of silent the last couple of days. When I say he bit off more than he can chew, I don't know him well enough to know whether he can chew on it or not. What I can tell you is he's bit off a lot. And I knew when I shot my mouth off, I could face the firing squad because I came up through junior hockey. Those fans are the wildest, the craziest, and in some ways the worst. CFL fans were nothing. And now, taking the abuse from NHL fans, NFL fans, the things that I say, I can handle anything. But Luke jumped in head first, and he's been beaten up pretty bad this week. That's why I made it very clear to him that I'm on his side. In all of this, I'm an ally. Be interesting to see where it goes. That's all I have on that today. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you at noon Eastern here on Game Plus.
Now I'm the whore and the pimp. That's where the money is.
How about that?